Look
Well,
at you showing up on time.
I'm always actually early. I hate being late.
Yeah, even
Well,
even you out the adventure in the wild world, you can still value showing up on time. Yeah, I imagine you fighting the panthers and the howling monkeys and wait, I can't be late.
the howlers have been pretty quiet the last few days. They normally, we got one group that has got a route right over the top of us. And so they come and go depending what trees are fruiting, the indigenous trees.
Yes, yes.
And so now this time of year we've got the give and take palms are making their little white fruit. So the toucans are very busy down below the canopy. You don't see too many birds down below the canopy because the trees are very tall. So most of the birds are up way up top. Some of the birds down lower, but most of the birds are up top. And when some of the lower fruits start fruiting, then they come down and start feeding.
Yeah, that makes sense. Paul Zway of Exclusive Tents, this is going to be an interview like no other you've ever had. Because I know you, I'll introduce myself. I'm Michelle Oliver, and I'm here today with Paul Zway of Exclusive Tents. But Paul, what I know about you is that you go where no man goes. So I think that's what we should do with this interview. Instead of it being formatted like a predictable interview, let's just talk about the essential things that really matter. Are you up for that?
Sure, absolutely. I'm excited to visit with you. It's a wonderful opportunity you give me, and I really appreciate it. And I enjoy visiting with you the last time with Randy. So let's go at it.
Yes, I am just absolutely delighted to be with you here today. And so tell us where you are right now, so everyone who listens can have a little feel of where you're coming in from.
Yeah, well, forgive me up front. I'm a little unconventional, so you're just going to have to live with that. But my wife and I have been living under the canopy in the jungle of Belize, close to the western border, which is the Guatemalan border.
Mhm.
And we live on like 5,000 square feet, a split level deck with a tent that we live in, which has now been, as I say, going on 10 years. And my office is, well, both of our offices in that tent, and got our bedroom, a little bit of a living room, a little veranda, and a little bathroom. And I'm sitting here in our lounge tent, which is the one we're sitting on the edge of a valley, about one third of the way up. And this one looks out over the valley. The other tents look into the jungle itself. But here we look through, ahead of me here, I look through the jungle out over the valley. And then I've got a guest tent, and I've got another tent where is actually a tent for shelter where I can barbecue without the rains raining us out. And then my dogs, my three big South African mastiffs, they sleep down there. And then the last structure is our kitchen, which is a wooden structure.
Yes. Okay. So you know that we are all about outdoor hospitality, right? And you live this life. So you know what just popped into my head? I've interviewed hundreds of people in different industries, and something that I have observed in doing this is that everyone seems to have like one pivotal moment where they make a decision about actually going into business with what they love. Do you have like a time or a significant thing that happened? Because you went from this lifestyle to entrepreneurship. Like you started a company around building these tents. Was it like a slow progression, or was there a moment where you were just like, I'm going to do this and go all in with this business?
There was an actual moment, but to understand, and maybe I digress a little bit, but when I left the national parks, working as a game ranger, which I did for 17 years, and I moved to the USA, and I thought with all my years of experience, I thought, well, I'll be able to get a job anywhere. And I had some interviews lined up, and I just couldn't get a job. And
Mm.
even as a backwoods ranger, the lowest of the low, and of job categories. And then I discovered that I'd been blacklisted because uh, of some of my experiences, which caused me to leave Africa uh, because of my work with anti-poaching. I had no choice but to get my children out of the country. And when I got to the States, I found that those same actors had me blacklisted, so I couldn't get a job. And so,
What? Wow, even in the US.
oh yes, I got
Oh
blacklisted, and
my.
then then I was also told by a friend of mine who had contacts with one of the fish and wildlife departments that he spoke to some people that he knew, and they felt that I was a bit of a threat, but they still didn't want to give me employment. But so I went from that to driving yellow cab to doing as a general handyman at a bed and breakfast, and I worked for as a driver for a gourmet shop. I did whatever I could, just
Wow.
to get on my feet, and I had two young boys I was raising, and shortly after that I was raising them on my own. And I then started my own business, which was in traditional African cast iron cookware. And so I started with that, and then went to China when there was no English signs anywhere when I first went to China, at the airports,
Huh.
wherever you went, there was no English anywhere.
Oh, wow.
And I developed a method of getting around. And anyway, as is often the case, after my first shipment of cast iron, everything was just fantastic. And then I ordered the second one, and that's when the trouble started. They started sending me defective product, and
Mm.
they refused to replace it. And so actually my business started going down because of it. And then it finally came to an end when I went to inspect my goods in Los Angeles, to find that everything was defective in there. And I say they refused to do anything with it, replace it, and so essentially it ended my business. But in the process, there's this elder gentleman who was a tent manufacturer who came uh, to spend a week with me. He was visiting family, and I'd known of him. I'd met him once or twice, and he was sitting. He said, "Paul, why don't you start on tents?" And that's got me going, and the
Oh,
business
interesting.
going. And I knew tents from my career. Living in the bush. When my first section where I started as a game ranger, I was living in a little mud house with a thatch roof that was built in 1935. There
Oh
was
my
I
gosh.
got there. There was no running water. There was no electricity. There was a windmill pump that pumped water, uh, and my office was in a tent. And I used to actually lie in bed shooting rats in the roof at night.
Paul. Oh my goodness.
And and then
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
and at that time, my eldest son Zane, he from very young age worked with me after school. From very young, he used to work with me, and he has worked with me through all these businesses. The other boys came in later, but um, after Uncle Andrew, that's what I used to call him, Uncle Andrew left. I sat with Zane and I said, "Do you think we can sell one tent a month? I said, if we can do that, we can make it go." And that started the journey, believing we can do it. We had very little money to get going, but that's where it started. And big circle comes around in later years. My partner in South Africa, Johan, it turns out that he journeyed under the same Uncle Andrew that got me going. So we got a
Oh.
very strong connection, that a lot of deja vu.
Okay, so I'm going to interject here a minute because there's so much that you have shared, and I know it's a tiny bit of your incredible story and your big expansive life that you have. But from adversity often comes opportunity, right? And so
Right.
many people contract from that. You don't. I mean, I even love the way you described going to China. Like how did you say it? You basically you developed a method for navigating in another country, just like you would in the bush or you are by nature an adventurer, obviously.
Absolutely.
So you've also I get the feeling that that's how you've approached your whole business. It's like another landscape to explore and develop and navigate through. But what I find really intriguing, and well, a lot of things, but part of it is that many people who are driven by values like you and who are um, just very, very devoted to staying true to those values are not able to create a business. I've heard you say so many times, that I know you have a business mind and you have your sons involved, but you've really built something extraordinary, Paul. Truly extraordinary, creative, unique, and successful. And yet you are not driven by the monetary success. I mean, to some degree, obviously to survive. But from what I understand from our other conversation, that is not a big driver. It's not image. It's not getting more. It's really everything you do is driven from your values. So how do
Values and
you
passion.
navigate this? And passion. Let's talk about passion.
Let's do. I mean, that's
Okay.
what everything is about. Is you and I were talking with our previous discussion, and it was just such a beautiful haphazard discussion. But my guiding principles has always been vision, mission, passion. It always has been, and it's
Yes.
never let me down today and to this day. And the vision is basically your dreams. Uh, your mission is how you go about making those dreams realized, and the passion is what you put into it to make it work, and keeping it human. And even uh, with the business, it's so unconventional, my business, because I don't micromanage at all. I expect everybody to do their best, and everybody does their best. And I've got no formal business education whatsoever. I've been riding this by the seat of my pants since day one. And my dad, who was a businessman, along with my grandfather, I'm sure looking down at me, and I'm hoping they say, well, I'm proud of what you've accomplished.
Yes.
Without going to college and learning anything about business, I'm terrible with numbers. That's why I'm married to Angelica. She helps me with the numbers. I and I don't really care about the money at all. She looks at that side of things. I'm interested in innovating and coming up with new ideas, finding people that enjoy the product, listening to their stories. How can we improve? And we listen to our customers tremendously, and I have got such great ideas from them. And my partner is the same. How do we make things better? He's constantly pushing us with ideas. How do we improve? What can we do to make it better? A better experience for the customer. So it's all a lot of dreaming still currently. It's every day we're doing something. It's like our new collection of tents that we're going to bring out in the new year, which we call the Imagine collection, because it's
That's
what you can imagine we can create.
this is so exciting. I just have to, this is my passion, is about really giving people permission to do exactly what you're talking about. That life is meant to be lived this way. It's really an organic process. Vision, mission, and passion. And look what you have built. And you're living your best life doing what you are best at. And somehow, when you do that, magically, we do attract people who are good at all the other things, who are finding their best use of their time, energy, and effort. So I think it's so magical what you have done. And I can't
You know,
believe you're calling the next version is Imagine. That's beautiful.
yeah, I
I
know the Imagine
love it.
collection. It's going to be a lot of fun, and you
Yeah.
know, as I say, I don't micromanage. My boys called me
Yeah.
this morning to tell me they're heading up to northern Arizona. I said, "What on earth for?" And they said to me, "Well, what we're going to do is Zane, the oldest boy that worked with me the longest, he does all our social networking and marketing and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And he's always communicating with people on social media, and he's been in contact with these two outdoor influencers. It's a new word to me. These people that are influencers,
Yes.
and but these guys are real outdoors people, and they're the northern side of Phoenix. I don't know which. I think in the Black Mountains, and
Mm.
they heading there today to go and meet these guys because these guys wanted to meet them. They wanted to meet each other. Where it goes to from there, I don't know. But they found a connection, and they just following something that's in their guts.
Yeah.
But then you don't know what the outcome is, because that's part of the excitement, is that you really don't know where life leads you. It's got all its twists and turns, and sometimes it gets really interesting and exciting, and other times it's like a blind avenue that you've gone down, and you've got to turn around real quickly and get out of it.
Yes. Yeah. No different than all of the adventures that you've had outdoors. I mean, it's all very similar, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Sometimes uh, with the business, it's like walking in the bush. Sometimes your sixth sense tells you don't go there, and so you don't. And other time, and the same with your business. You get people that come with these grandiose ideas that sound so wonderful. And my dad always used to say, he had this expression: "Slowly over the stones. Don't rush at anything. There's no need." And
Mhm.
sometimes I'm very cautious. I'm very conservative, actually. Business wise, I'm very conservative, and I'm not one that goes and pushes the envelope financially. I'm very conservative, but then again, there's exciting stuff. Like I was chatting to Randy at quite some time back, actually, and I told him that I really don't believe in trade shows anymore. I said, they become exorbitantly expensive. Um, the whole attitude of a trade show has changed over the years. It's become this more formal business thing. There's no time where you can, I went to a trade show, and my boys, they're musicians, and they bring their instruments, and we sit and play, and people come and we visit with them and have a beer. And now it's sort of all more formal and strained and more expensive and more expensive. And the competition is fierce, which I don't mind. Competition is a good thing. But people tend to want to down talk you, and I don't down talk any client at all. I don't down talk their product. I don't down talk them. But we've come up with our own ideas how we're going to get to people, and it'll be in the new year. We're going to be doing something in Tennessee. We're still trying to put all the ideas together, but where we'll be doing our own trade show. Just us as the only exhibitor, and invite people over a period of time when we won't wine and dine them, but we'll have food for them, and we'll visit with them, and that's what we want to do. And over a long weekend, we'll go and put ourselves out in the bush and invite a whole lot of people to come. Whoever comes, and whoever doesn't.
This is brilliant. And you know why it's brilliant? Because it's down to earth, it's real. It's I know the word authentic is overused a lot right now, but the reason it's become so trendy is because we are all seeking that. We want to go back to that real connection. And that's what we're doing with Expitality. That's what it's all about, connection, right? How do you get that true engagement and connection when you're at these events that just become more and more controlled and structured and corporatized, if that's a
Yeah,
word?
yeah, exactly.
So it's back to freedom. How do we move back to freedom and design it any way we want? And that's the invitation you're giving to people. Imagine whatever you can imagine, we can do it for you. And then you can have the experience that you know is right for you.
Right, and it sort of lures your customer to start thinking out of the box, because when it comes to tents, you've got to think outside the box. You don't have a hard wall, and you don't always have hard openings, so you've got to think differently. You can't put light switches on the wall. With a tent, it's a seductive creature. So you're not wanting to use bright lights. You're trying to use an aura of romance, and it's you've got to look at that structure, even though it's a shell. It comes to light with what you do within it and what you do around it. And you've got to find a way of integrating your living space with your natural environment as best as you can. And that applies to everything. Even what you and Randy do is trying to integrate, the romance of nature
Mm,
with your living space.
exactly. Without having to shoot rats.
Without,
you,
without
you
having,
you eliminate that part of it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Here we don't have to worry about the rats, but we've got an outside shower, so we've got these huge Caribbean toads that quite frequently come and join us in the shower over here.
Caribbean toads. Oh my
Yeah,
god.
it's a real big froggy.
Yeah, yeah, real big froggy. That's funny. Yeah, I have an idea that much of what you've experienced in your life, very few people can even imagine. So, yes, you've had so many amazing adventures, and I've only heard of a few of them. So, let me check time. Okay, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Share a little bit, if you would, about the values. So you were saying values, mission, I'm sorry, vision, mission, passion.
Right.
So could you share a few, or maybe just one or two, whatever, values that drive your vision?
Well, all of my values are core. They're totally core. Where I never lie to somebody. I don't pressure people. Uh, Honesty is a really big deal for me. Transparency is a big deal. Family is a very big deal to
Mm,
me. Friends, connections that are genuine, that last for years and years and years. But everything comes for me with values comes back to core values, not not created values or values that people make that or try to create that or they believe are more important than the core value, because everything still comes back to core value. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's where I'm at. Just the old-fashioned handshake. I get a legal document and it's longer than 2 pages and
yeah,
it's not written in English. I'm not interested.
yes.
You know,
Yeah,
that, that,
makes
corp,
perfect
that corp,
sense.
the corporate world, I don't want to go into it. In fact, I've turned business down because they send me these wreaths of papers to tender on projects. And I just don't do that. I say, well, if you want my business, I'll give you a proposal, but I'm not tendering. I'm not going to go through all that paperwork, and it's extremely invasive, and I'm not putting my family into that. So I'll turn down that business, and I have turned down that business.
And you have done this, and by the way, everything you're saying makes perfect sense. What doesn't make sense is, all the posturing and everything that doesn't work, which people tend to opt in on rather than looking deeply and saying, this is who I am, this is what really matters to me, and I can build from that. So the one of the most impressive, inspiring things about you is that you have done this. You have stayed so connected to these values, and yet you have expanded. I mean, you have an incredible organization, even when
Yeah,
it's unorganized.
yeah, and
Even
the
if
other thing.
it is not, I'm joking, it's not, but
No, it is to some extent, but also the real other true values that are out there is knowing what is right and what is wrong, and never do wrong to anybody, because you do wrong. What you put out there comes back. You put good out there, it comes back. It's like I always, when my children were growing up, I said to them, remember, think carefully before you say something, because once you've said it, you can never take it back. It's
yes.
there, it's done. So think before you speak, and just simple things of life. Before you do something, think: Am I doing something wrong? Or am I doing something that's right? If it's wrong, is it going to hurt somebody? No matter what it is, just to profit. A lot of people like to stand on other people to elevate themselves, and that
Yes.
just doesn't work. But to them, it does work. And that there's a lot of things that people do business wise, which is not illegal. It may be unethical, and it might be wrong, but it's not illegal. But they still do it. But
Mhm.
they got to live with their conscience.
Yes. So what I see is you've stayed really true to this. This is how you conduct business, through developing relationships, through standing in integrity. Everything you do is driven from a value, core values, that then moves into vision. And then from that, you build your mission. And then the passion is what keeps it going and holds it all together. I also think I heard you say the phrase, a tent is a seductive creature.
Yes.
And
and
so,
and
so
I say creature in that it's
yeah,
what you can call a living structure in
yeah.
nature, because when the wind blows, it will move. It flows with nature, and that's why I call it my creatures.
I get it. It's just so accurate and so meaningful. And it says so much. That little phrase is packed with information. So when you said that, and then you built on that, what I hear is the creative urge in you that is constant. And you've been true not only to your core values and vision and mission and passion, but you have allowed your business to be the vehicle for creativity. And what's really interesting to me is that now you're inviting the rest of the world to be creative with you. You sound like an artist to me, Paul.
Yeah, it's like the saying that we have in the company, which is the world is our canvas. Our
Yeah.
customers paint the canvas with our tents around the world, but that is true. The world is our canvas, and it's up to our clients to paint their parts on the canvas. The natural canvas of the world, where the tents, wherever they are, they allow people to reconnect with nature. They allow them to find solitude. That's not very different from loneliness. And I used to teach this to
Mhm.
people when I was a game ranger. In the wilderness, you find solitude. In cities, you find loneliness. And they're two very different animals entirely. And, that living in a tent, if one opens one mind, you can find that solitude, that connection with nature, and all the wellness that comes together with that, the wholeness, so to speak. And I'm not trying to be dramatic, because it's what I do every day of my life. I got up this morning at 4:30, and about 40 minutes later, the sky turned pink, and it lit up the valley a little bit. It was just so beautiful.
What you just shared is it's not dramatic, it's fact. And it's insight to human nature. What you're doing is it's just remarkable what you've built and what you're providing for people. It is really true that in nature you find solitude, in the cities you find loneliness. And when you said that, I have this vision again of like cubicles, right? Square boxes
Right.
where the communities that we live in are divisive. There's not a place for community. So it's it's really interesting, and what you're doing is just so remarkable. I think this too is why in the world today people are seeking more connection with nature, and it's becoming trendy, and I don't even think that people really understand what's calling to them, but it's so much deeper than they even know, and it's about connection.
And it's also about meeting people and knowing that you, after meeting them, knowing that you've moved them in some way. Um, I'll give you an example. There was, for about 10 years when I was living in Arizona,
Mhm.
I was in a depression where there was a little hill to the east and a little hill to the west. And for almost every day that I was home, I ran up in the morning to the top of the one hill, took photos of sunrise. And then I ran up in the afternoon to the other one. I took photos of the sunset. And then I sent them to a few friends of mine via email. And then friends asked me to add this friend. And eventually there was so many people on this photographs, and they were all just sunrises and sunsets, nothing else. And then one
Wow.
day I got a letter, an email from a lady in Chicago, and she told me she was living in an apartment where she never sees the sunrise or the sunset. And she told me she printed out so many of my photos on her walls. I knew it was so worth all those years of
Oh
running around.
my gosh.
And I just, that meant so much to me, just that I'd moved one person over the years, that they had the that they that they even took the time to write back to me and tell me, thank you, um they make my day. I put them up on the wall.
That's incredible.
So that's just
Wow.
little ways that you move people, sometimes in ways that you don't know about, and at times that you can't even imagine how
Mhm.
you've moved people. So long as you true and genuine in what you do, you always move and affect people in a positive way.
Yes. You always move and affect people in a positive way when you're true to yourself. And imagine what what you're facilitating for every person who's in every tent that you ever made. They're having those experiences, you know? They're having those moments, and it really, I know it sounds cliche, right? But it really, life really is about the moments like that we have.
And it's exactly as Randy's so passionate about it. It's the experience, and the experience is, it can be so many things. Let's say on a day visit, your experiences are there. Based on your experiences, you'll remember something, especially if it was unique,
Yes.
way longer than if it was just another hotel room. Then what's there to remember about it? But to be in a tent when it's raining, to be able to be in the tent when the rain comes in, you can smell the that aroma coming in off the raw dirt. It's just different. It's just, as I say, it's that connection to nature, and remaining true to yourself and your core. whether making it a business or whether you're an individual, you still got to, you know, you've got to connect with nature. That's why I love walking around barefoot all the time. It just keeps you grounded. And I've always been mostly barefoot or in sandals. And that goes for sometimes even at trade shows. I've run around barefoot, and I don't really care. It's who I am.
Yes. Many things we have forgotten for the wrong reasons. So everything that you're doing is so impactful. And the way that you have been true to yourself throughout your life, even through all the adversity, and you
Yeah,
just continue to show up. Who you told some story when the last time we spoke. Yes, and maybe it was something to do with a trade show or someone you were working with, but yeah, your values come out in everything. You do not compromise the way you live in the world for anyone. You're so connected to who you are. And this is what people are seeking. And I see that what you're doing is a bridge and it facilitates that for other people, that ability for them to reconnect with who they are.
right, 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 right. And I like that word you use, bridge. It is. I wouldn't have thought of that, but it is. It's you can cross a threshold from a lifestyle to an experience that you don't forget for a long time to come. And it's you want to be able to do something that you're going to want to talk about with your friends. You said, this
Yes.
is what I did. It was so different. It was uh, so many finding the experiential side of things, which you and Randy are working on, is just so important, because a lot of that is not uh, an amusement park. It's not a ride on a dirt bike. It's the reconnection with
Yes.
your primordial self.
Yes. And it can be as simple, a beginning can be as simple as taking your shoes off. And I did that this morning, went out and walked in the snow barefoot,
Brilliant.
because it's like that's important. I need to ground myself. So, and I think that as a world, we have become so conditioned or addicted or whatever you want to call it to adding on to ourselves. We're going to add things all the time. And then we're going to fight against all of our trauma or whatever, right? Like we fight and add and fight and add, when it could be as simple as letting go and taking a step in a different direction. And also, you're allowing people that opportunity to take a step in a direction that opens possibility for you outside, so far outside your cubicle, your
Right.
little box, that yeah, and you never know what you're going to find there. So you're welcoming people to the grand adventure.
And then also my own mum always used to say she loved the expression, for everything there's a season. and
Mm.
and everybody does have a season. If you go through tough times, I've been through tough times, and I've told you what happened with my youngest son, my oldest son, when we went through very rough times. But everybody, you go through tough times, but then your season comes and you must recognize it. And then you must be unafraid. You need to go and explore the unknown. You need to feel or taste the adrenaline on your tongue. You know, that's what life's about. That's why we have adrenaline. And you've got to, and I'm not saying you go and jump off a cliff with a parachute, even though I'm sure that's fun. But in life, you've got to, you've got to be daring and step where sometimes people don't want to step.
Yeah.
And so long as you're not stepping on other people, that's fine.
Yes, I think, and we make the mistake of doing that, because part of it is because we're so disconnected from nature. Because in nature, you learn you don't do that. That's not a law in nature of stepping on other people or other, you don't do that. there are different laws, but yes, so many amazing lessons that you've shared.
Oh no, I
I'm
love
gonna be sending you a lot of bumper stickers with all of your words of wisdom.
no, I just have this, I, and as you know, I have this philosophical connection with Randy, and we don't talk business. We just get together and we just talk philosophy and just core stuff, just really core stuff about. And he's like a brother. I mean, we've never met each other, but he's like a brother, and I just our minds tend to meet because we believe in the same core values. And he's a busy guy, but he still finds time to sit down and visit for an hour with me, and it does us both good. It grounds us back again, and we don't talk business, and we sometimes on the fringes we do, but we haven't really discussed my business, his business. He asks me ideas and my thoughts, and I share them, and not that they of any value, but uh, that's what he does with me. He shares his thoughts as well, and I treasure those. And it's not only connecting with nature; it's reconnecting with people uh, that believe the same that you do. Those core basic values, because with that is the greatest foundation that you can build your life on. If you don't have it, you're going to have a shaky life. And having more money that you can stuff in a bank is not going to make you happy.
You mentioned your mom. What was your relationship like with her? Did she um it sounds
Amazing,
yeah.
amazing. My mom was an amazing woman. She never ever in her entire life camped out because they were too poor. They never did go camping or anything like that. So what I did was so foreign to her. My dad as well. My dad was a cripple. So he'd never gone camping either. They were both city folk. So I was born in the city. And when I started going to the bush as a young schoolboy and spending weekends in the bush catching snakes and animals and all kinds of stuff, I I think my parents were horrified.
Yeah.
But and they were terrified as well, because some of the snakes later were poisonous snakes, some of the most deadly snakes, in
This
fact.
was in Africa, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yes, okay. So,
And
yes, very dangerous.
and my parents supported me through all of this, even though they probably, well, they did disagree. They didn't think it was the right thing for me to do, but they didn't stop me from doing it. And they encouraged me to if this is what I want to do, if this is, because I told them from, when I was quite young, I'm going to the bush, I'm going to become a game ranger. My grandmother was even more horrified. Oh my goodness, I think she actually was very hard on my parents for encouraging me to do what I did. She just felt I need to go to university and go and study and become a professional, and I just wasn't going to do that. And eventually, before she died, she said she understood, but it took a while before she understood.
Oh my gosh. Do you have siblings, brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got a younger brother that died about 5 years ago, but he
Oh,
died. He died doing what he loved. He was paragliding off the coast in South Africa. And yes, I've got an older sister. She's 2 years older than me. And I scrapped with my sister for many years. I scrapped with her. And when she got older, uh, we found each other. And I'm so grateful for that, because, when my brother died, we were close. And when my sister and I were very close today.
yes, it's really important. So you learned a lot of these values from your mom, you said. So her
My, my,
strength and your
but my
dad.
mom and dad, yes, my mom was, she taught us matters of heart. She
Mm,
truly taught us matters of heart. Um, and she had an instinct that was just a sixth sense, and an instinct that was just amazing. She could look at you and she'd know you were hurting inside,
mm.
emotionally. She would know. She just knew it. My dad was, because he was a cripple, he had a really rough life in the professional world. I mean, one of his first jobs they tried to get, the first job they gave him was to load these old washing machines on trucks, and he's a cripple, but he figured a way of doing it. And so
What?
he taught me tenacity and strength, and never to complain that your life is hard. No, there's always somebody that is hurting more than you are, and you need to never forget that.
What do you think some of the lessons, or the, I guess, lessons or values that people can experience when they're, I know we touched on this already, but I want to go deeper. When they come to an experience in a tent. However, I mean, there's different ways of doing that, right? There's a whole spectrum of ways you can have an experience in this amazing living, breathing shelter that you have provided. What do you think can happen for people? Because as you were describing all this, I was thinking about how unhappy many people are right now, and how many people complain and, rail against the world and all the things that are wrong. So when you were talking about your dad, I was thinking, how many people haven't even had real adversity, but they find reasons to complain rather than reasons to grow or expand? Does that make sense? That's kind of a
Yeah, it does. I mean, I look at my best friend who's now in Arizona. We worked as colleagues in the bush in the national parks, and we've been close, and we've since the mid-70s we've been close, and we've journeyed a lot together. We've had so many parallels in our lives that at times it gets quite scary.
wow.
And he was bitten by a 16-foot crocodile. He was brutalized. He spent a year in hospital, and
Oh my God.
he'll battle this crocodile to his grave, but you will never hear him complain. There's always a joke, or there's always a smile. He'll figure a way of dismissing it.
Yeah.
But that he struggles. He totally does.
It's a choice every moment, isn't it? It really is. How did he encounter a crocodile?
He was walking across a shallow part of a river, very shallow part, and there was a drop off, and the crocodile was lying in that drop off. As he passed it, came out and grabbed him and what they try and do is they try and drown you. They take you and they spin around under the water trying to drown you, and then they'll bring you up, and they try to. They can't chew a crocodile. So what they do is they'll take their prey, and once it's drowned, or if it's fighting with them, they'll lift it out of the water, and they shake their heads like crazy and they break off parts of the body that way, and then they swallow those parts whole. Because they can't chew.
Where was this?
That was in the national park where we worked.
In Africa.
In Africa, yes.
And
And he's the only.
somehow he got away from a crocodile.
Yeah, there were quite a few of his friends around. I wasn't there that day, but there were quite a few friends that went in to help him. One got his arm broken by the crocodile. Another guy got himself a muscle ripped out by the crocodile, but eventually they managed to separate the crocodile from my friend.
Hmm. That's the kind of thing you can't explain. And yet this individual that, as you're talking about gathering people around you and gathering with people who are like-minded, who share the same values, this individual chooses to be happy and dismiss complaints after some random crazy thing like that happens. And so many other people will find the tiniest, offense, and it will crumble their life. So again, like, what you provide, I think, is so amazing, Paul. And it's not just the tent, but it's everything that you have brought to that, everything you've brought to the business, everything that you are is expressed through this creative project of this tremendous business, and for your sons as well.
Yeah, it's actually, if you think uh, of who one is, I think of who I am. I'm a product of uh, my grandmother, my grandfather, my mother and father, what they taught me. I'm a product of what my friend that was bitten by the crocodile, what he's taught me in life. I'm a product of what my children have taught me in life. And that we are products of what we learn or are willing to learn. I spent a lot of time with my grandfather, a fascinating man, and trying to get his history out of him, which he was really closed about. There are parts of his life he just wouldn't talk about. But then there were other parts that he did talk about, and the same with my grandma. She had a very interesting, background as well, and even how my grandmother and grandfather met. It just those things just impact my life. And I think of my grandmother before she was born. Her parents came down East Africa in a wagon, and looking at their gravestones, my great grandparents, they came down somewhere within 15 years of Livingston and Stanley.
Oh
And those
my gosh, that's
and those,
crazy.
and to think that they had so much yellow fever, the malaria, and then
Yeah.
there was a lot of that. There was a lot of slaving going on at the time. There was a lot of tribal warfare going on at the time, but they did it. They were poor people. They're in this wagon, and they did their thing. And it just hearing some of these stories, that makes you who you are, because you learn from them their difficulties, their hardships, and uh, and their successes.
Yes.
Their successes, their success. My grandparents' success in raising a crippled boy, and my other grandmother, raising 7 kids when I never knew my grandfather. He died, I think, the day my parents were married. He died, so I never got to know him. But they were very poor. My mother used to go. She was one of only 2 girls. The rest were boys, and she used to go to school with the boys' clothes that were old. She never got to wear girls' clothing,
Yeah.
not until much later. Yeah,
And it just wasn't an issue.
and through all and I'm sure she was teased terribly, but she kept that soft heart of her. She had a really beautiful heart. She really did.
Isn't it amazing?
And then at the end of the day, you've got your kids, and then the most important person in your life is your wife. And uh, you know that's where you draw your strength, and it's somebody that you soundboard ideas off. It's somebody that's always there for you. And doing the work that we do, we live in each other's lives. We don't go to an office anywhere. We work together. We live together. We cook together. We go to town together. We do everything together.
You have such a holistic life. You set such a beautiful example and template for what's possible for people. Everything is integrated. So from the, there's no separation. Home, family, business, love,
There's no
values, nature, inside, outside. It's like complete. It's very beautiful.
no there is no separation. I mean, Angelica speaks to her parents a few times a week. I speak to my boys sometimes every day of the week. Whether it's just checking up, which is frequently just checking up how each other's doing, or this afternoon we've got a meeting coming up, just an informal meeting, got some issues we want to discuss, and we'll do that over a couple of beers together, or 1 or 2 rums, I don't know yet.
Yeah. Go rum. I vote rum. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh. Paul, this is such a delight. And as you're speaking, I'm here in Colorado, and I was looking out the window, and the sky is full of birds everywhere. And I think that's a beautiful sign that regardless of all the, the trauma and difficulties that we all have, different generations, different times of our life, nature goes on. The sun rises, the sun sets, the birds, and when we can take that time and the opportunity that you offer people to come have a deeper experience of that, it can inform your life and enrich in so many ways. And I think we don't even realize how starved many of us are.
I think so. And I think also, I hate bringing it up, but I think COVID has played a big role in, people going backwards in life. People are too afraid to do things anymore. And, people were sort of prevented from doing things. And people were afraid of other people. Nature gives you that antidote. It gives you that
Yes.
antidote.
Yeah. Nature gives you that antidote. Yep. Bare feet, lots of fresh air,
Absolutely.
no masks, fresh
No,
water, like eat when you're hungry, don't eat when you're not hungry. It's so simple.
and that's it. Actually, Angelica struggled with that in the beginning. She was, and so did I. Grew up in a household that breakfast was at this time, and lunch was at this time, and dinner was at this time. And when I first met her, it was really difficult. I said, you can't just eat because it's a time. You eat when you're hungry, and if you're hungry and you want to eat a lot, you eat a lot. I said, but to eat at a time just makes no sense. I know for a lot of people that have to go to office, and it makes sense to them, but it still doesn't. There are ways around eating when you're hungry, and even if it's only on a weekend, you need to do it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. The whole over structure to everything is ridiculous. It makes no sense at all.
Yeah, and that's why I said to you in the beginning. I said I don't conform to anything, and
Yeah.
if there's a rule, it becomes a challenge for me to break it.
I agree. I understand that very well. Oh my gosh. I can't tell you what a delight it is just to be with you and have this conversation. And I know that we have to kind of wrap up because there are because we're on a clock. We're on a clock and
You are, I'm not.
I'm on a clock. I have another appointment. But Paul, this is such a privilege. And for anyone and everyone who has the opportunity to watch this conversation that we've had, you're going to look back at it, and your wife and everyone who watches it, you will be amazed at the wisdom and the gems and jewels that you have shared with people today. And
Gosh,
I'm so deeply grateful just for you being who you are in the world, and that I had this chance to do this with you. So thank you.
well, I hope you and I get 10 out of 10 for this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm waiting for that trip to Belize and yeah, drinking whatever. I forgot what we were gonna drink, but doesn't matter.
We'll
Nothing.
figure it out.
Yeah. So thank you so, so very much. And I will be in touch very soon. And we'll do this again, I hope. It was just, I just honor you and all that you're doing. So thank you for your integrity and everything that you are.
I really appreciate you and your time and everything. Loved our visit, and we'll chat again soon.
Okay, good. Ciao for now. Have a
Ciao.
beautiful day. Ciao.
You too. Ciao, ciao.